Here we go. Alexander the Great, Book 10, September 2022. Is them fere diebus. So we're starting off with the ablative, which means is them means the same, diebus is the days, fere and fermi as well. They're both adverbs that mean almost. So at almost the same days, during the same days almost. Kianda and sitelkis. These are obviously proper nouns. And we have an et cum. So we'll just leave this little cum bit for a minute. And herakon, superveniunt. Superveniunt means arrives. Sometimes it means unexpectedly arrives. And Kianda and Sitalkes and Heraklon arrived cum agathon, which is the ablative, which means with this fellow here, agathon, at around the same days. Qui, this is the plural qui, so these people, qui who. I've got an accusative. Jusso regis, which is by order. Regis, genitive of the king, or kiderant. So these are the people who had killed this accusative bloke, Parmenion. And that's the first sentence. V milia, which means 5,000, peditum. These are foot soldiers, infantry, with equitibus M. So 5,000 infantry and M's 1,000 of the cavalry, comma, clause, said et, so but also, accusators eos e provincia, end of clause, cui praefurent. So 5,000 foot soldiers and 1,000 equibuts, horses, cavalry, of to whom praefurent they are in charge of, but also with the accusators from the provinces to which they had been in charge of, sequitur of this clause. So the 5,000 foot soldiers and 1,000 knights, they followed. They followed these guys who had killed Parmenion by order of the king. Nec tot facinora. Tot and quot go together. So many of these crimes, facinos is a neuter. So something's going to be negative, we know from that next. So many crimes, in as many as quot, ad miserant. So basically so many crimes that they had done. Compensare poterit. So neither were they able, poterit, to compensate for the so many crimes that they had committed. Were they able to compensate with his slaughter, the caedus, perquam, just means just as, or as basically, and grate regi ministerium. So the king was grateful basically for this ministerium, which they'd killed this guy by the king's order. So even though he was grateful, they were not able to compensate for all the other crimes that they'd done. Quippy, since, cum omnia profana spoliescent. Since when everything profana, which means secular, it means outside of the initiates basically, so they had despoiled everything which was secular, ne quidem, and not even abstinuent, they're not even abstained, and this goes into the ablative, they're not even abstained, or it could be dative, from the sacred, the sacris. And so we'll have an early daily dictionary. There's our, here's the word I just found. Profanus, top 20,000 words. Impious, the not initiated, and the secular profane. Okay, back to the story. Virgins qui, there's the enclitic. And the virgins is the unmarried women, and the princeps feminarum, this is the princeps meaning the leading of the women, the leading women of this place. Stupra, so it's probably ablative, by sexual violations or an illegal sex. Perpesse. So perpesse goes with princepses. So they had suffered, the leading leaders of these women had suffered this defilement basically. Corporum ludibria flebiment. So they were weeping, it's an imperfect, they're weeping at this ludibria of their bodies. Corporum's their body. Okay. Invisum Macedonum nomen. And remember, ludibria back here was a mockery or a laughing stock. Violations, it's actually a neuter as well. So invisum, which means hated, nomen, Macedonium. So the name of Macedonians, looks like we've gone into the ablative, Avaritia, which means greediness, Eorum of them, it's a demonstrative noun, and libido, which is, so by their greed and their lust, the libido, Fekarat, they had made the nomen Macedonian, the names of the Macedonians hated, and we have a dative to the barbarous, to the barbarians. Inter omnes tamem. So amongst all these things, or all omnes probably means people, amongst these people, Tamen, nevertheless, eminabat Cleandro furo. The madness of Cleander was eminent, was preeminent, it shone the most. Qui, who a nobilem virginum, they're in apposition, and who was a noble maiden, basically. Constupratem. This supine goes with it. She goes back to this stupra here. She was degraded, so he'd use this noble woman for sex, and servo suo to his own slave. Suo is himself, so it's his own slave. Dederat he gave as a pelicum, which is like a meretrix. It's a concubine, basically. Pleriqui, many or most, amacorum, genitive of the friends, double genitive of Alexander, not so much criminum of the crime, which parlem openly obicbanter, which was cast upon them, atrocitatem, this would go with criminum, so not so much the atrocity of the crime, which they'd been accused of openly, then, or as, the memory, Ochesi, of the killing per illos through them of Parmeniosus, the guy who was killed. That tacitum, which is in silence. Prodesse is like betrayed or handed over. Reus is an accused person, so it's in plural here. Apud regem, amongst with the king, basically. Poterat was able. So which, in this silence, this taxum was able to prodesse, be produced for the defendants amongst the kings, into bantor, which would, like, since it's you can see that the NT means it's plural, and it's comes from a deponent, I'm pretty sure. So so the memory of the killing of him, which they were looking over, which might be help these accused people. Latai means they were happy. Recadissi means fell. So they were happy that this anger in genitive accusative. So it's in with the accusative. So towards or into these ministers of anger. So they're happy that the ira, the anger, had fallen into the ministers of anger. So basically, the king had ordered this guy to be killed, and now his anger was falling on these ministers who had carried out his ire. And nek and ulam, which is what they call them, some sort of the naughty nine, one of their pronominatives or something they're called. Neither was any. Ulam takes the negative most of the time, so neither was there any potentiam, any power. Quaisem was earned scellere by this crime, that's an ablative, and to anyone who obtains power through a crime, SA would be diuturnum, would be long lasting, if you want to go back over that. The rex, the king, cognita causa, ablative absolute, so having gotten to know the case, the king having gotten to know the case, pronuntivated, that's a perfect, so he pronounced, having gotten to know the case, that unum, one thing, ab accusatoribus, from these accusers, and id maximum, id's neuter, and this is the greatest thing, this unum, this one thing greatest, crimen esse praeteritum, he'd passed by praeteritum, this unum, this one thing in the crime, desperationem salutis suae, despair or for his own safety. Numquam, never, enem, for never, or soros, it's a future, that would they have dared talia, such things. Qui, who, ipsum himself, from India, sospidem, which means safely. For they never would have dared such thing with himself from India safely either. Optician, if they had chosen or wished this, that he would be returned safe from India. And there's reverti that ought crediscent, or they believed reverse surum, that he would be about to return. So underlying all this, he says they never would have dared such things if they wanted him to come back safely from India, or if they indeed believed that he was coming back from India. Igator, hos, those, quidam, indeed, or even vincet. So therefore, indeed, he vinceted these, so he bound them up. DC is 600, autem is however or moreover, however, 600 of the soldiers, qui, who savate eorum ministrain furent. So, yeah, okay, so therefore he ordered these to be bound up, and moreover, 600 of these soldiers, furent, who had been the ministeries, these had been the people who had administered this savagery of them, this brutal treatment of them, usit, he ordered, plus the infinitive, to be killed. Iodem die, on the same day, sumptum est supplican, punishment was taken up, de eos, concerning these people, quoque also, quos, who, auctores, whose were the authors, defectionis, of this defection, which is rebellion, another genitive, double genitive, of the Persians. Those who were the authors of this defection of the Persians, or a revolt of the Persians, Craterus, we've got a nominative here. So Craterus adduxerated eos, these people. So we're saying Craterus led these people in, quos, who were the authors of this rebellion of the Persians, and on the same day, punishment was taken up for them. Hord multo post, so not much after, Nearchus en one citritus, quos, who, longius in ocean procedere usurat, who he had ordered to proceed longius, that's a comparative, so rather more or much further into the ocean, supervenient, they had arrived, or arrived unexpectedly. Nuntabant autem, so they were announcing, moreover, quaidem, certain things, audita, which they'd heard, and alia, other things, comperta, that they'd discovered. An insula, which is an island, osteo amnis, the mouth of the river, subjectam, means up against. So insula subjectam, or in apposition, there's an island up against the mouth of the river. Oro, which is gold in the ablative, abundare. This is reported speech which is announced, so it takes the infinitive. So the island up against the mouth of the river was abundant with gold. In opem means it was lacking. Sa, that's the infinitive again, taking up from the other. And they announced that it was lacking of horses, lacking in horses, you might say in English. Singulos eos comparent. So they discovered that each single one, abius from these, qui ex continere tracere ordurant. So they dared, which takes the infinitive, who they dared tracere, to cross over ex continent, from the continent. So this is the mainland to this island. A singulus talentus emi, means to buy them for a single talent, singulos, each horse, which they dared to cross over from the mainland. Planum esse belloarum mare. Mare is neuter, so the sea was full, belloarum, of whales, or whale-like creatures, aestu secundu. By the favour of the tide, these were ferried across. I guess these moved by the favour of the tide. Magnarum navium corpora, again, corpora is a neuter. So the bodies, equentes, it's present participle. So the bodies were equal, in size I'm guessing, of magnarum navium, of great ships. So the sea is full of whales that were ferried there following the tide, equal in body size to that of great ships. Trucae cantu, that's ablative, deterritas. So we've got deterred or deterrified, basically, and the as means it's plural accusative, going on continuing on with these whales. So they were deterred by Akantu, by that sound, wild sound of the horns, basically. Sequi following the Classem, the fleet, and with Magno Aequoris Strepitu, so with a great din, Strepitu is a great noise. Aequoris is usually the flat top of the sea, the ocean top, basically. Velut, as if, Demersa Naviga, as if like a sunken ship, Sabisi, they would go under aquas, the waters, Aequoris of the face of the sea. Cetera, the rest of things, or the rest of matters, in coles crediderant. So in the rest of the things they believe, the dative to the incolas, these are the inhabitants. Interque, amongst which, rubrum mare, the Red Sea, non a calore undarum, not by the colour of the waves, Red Sea, ut means as, pleriqui, as most people crederant believe. So it's called the Red Sea, not from the colour of the waves as many believe, said, but ab ethro rege, but from King Ethris or whatever you'd call that. Appellare means was called. Yeah, so it wasn't called the Red Sea because of the colour, it was because this king had called it the Red Sea. Essay. To be probably means there was, there is. Hord Procol, not far. A continente, from the continent, from the mainland. That's ablative. An insulum, an island in the accusative. Consitem, which means it was sown, the island was sown. With palmettus frequentibus, with a crowd of lots of palms, basically. At and in medio ferre nemore, and in the middle, ferre almost, nemore is a grove, in the middle, in a grove in the middle almost, a columnam emanae, they emanated up, they rose up a column. This be man-made column. A monumentum ethri regis, of this King Regis bloke who call it the Red Sea. Literis gentis, in the letters of this race, eos of this race, in the letters of this race, scriptam, written. And to end it, ad Yicabant, and so they added to this, ad Yica, they threw together this navigia, the ships. We have a little clause here, of which vexis, hence a plural pluperfect of viho, so which carried lixers and mercators. You see these lixers are a lot in the castras, in the camps, military camps. These are like, they call them sutlers and merchants, mercators. Famum ore, the rumour of gold, secutis gubernatorius. These are the guys who steer the ships. So with the steerers of the ships following rumours of gold, in insulum SA, transmissa. They had transmitted, they had crossed over into the island, in with the accusative, and nec dende, and neither then, abbeys, from these, postea, afterwards, visa were they seen. So, out of this were ships carrying lixers and mercators. The helmsmen were following rumours of gold. They crossed over to the island, but then afterwards, they were never seen.